Hello students, and welcome to the next lesson in our AS level psychology course. Today we're going to be looking at imprinting. The evolutionary theory of attachment. There are two main theories that explain why organisms are going to attach to one another. In the last video we explained that there is the evolutionary theory of attachment and the learning theory of attachment. One of the two is the evolutionary theory. This states that in order to survive, the species will attach to the caregiver who has a role where food and protection will be given to that child. This gives us a survival advantage, and what this is, it's an ability or a trait which will increase our chances in survival. LORENZ'S theory of imprinting. Lorenz was a scientist who suggested that newly born species have a need to recognize and follow its caregiver to survive. As a result, it would then get all of the food and protection that it needed. He investigated on how animals would do this and what it meant. He called the way that the animals formed a basic attachment only needed for survival, where there's no real emotional connection, imprinting. The definition of imprinting is the innate ability to recognize one's caregiver in animals. This then enabled the animals to learn species-specific behaviors to socialize, mate, and survive, hence passing on their genes and passing on sort of their legacy and surviving. The critical period. Animals would be able to imprint on the first large moving object that they could follow for more than 10 minutes. However, imprinting can only happen within a specified time frame. The critical period was what the name for this specified time frame was. His studies indicated that it lasts for 36 hours. So what this means is that if we have a random animal, say for example a goose, that goose, when trying to imprint on its main caregiver, would have 36 hours to do so. If it doesn't imprint within those 36 hours, then it doesn't form the attachment in the basic form of imprinting. LORENZ'S goslings. Lorenz conducted a study to see how goslings would imprint and how it would work. He used 3 groups of goslings which he imprinted upon in an incubator. One of the groups imprinted on their biological mother, that was goose. Another group imprinted on himself, as he was the first large moving object which they moved for 10 minutes. And the other group did not imprint on anything. They were left alone for the first 36 hours of their life. The goslings were stored in an enclosure, and then they were ultimately released. When they were released, Lorenz, the mother goose, were both standing outside of the enclosure, and here we have with the findings that the actual geese would follow their main caregiver. So now we're going to evaluate his experiment and his ideas. Firstly, humans are far more complex than animals, and his findings don't really apply to us. Also, Sluckin showed that young birds raised in captivity could imprint outside 36 hours, hence having a longer critical period. So this means his whole idea of the critical period may be wrong and disproved. Also, Kendrick et al. Showed that imprinting is not a permanent process, which Lorenz thought it would be. Goats that imprinted on sheep were returned to their herd of goats 3 years after they had imprinted and socialized with them. The female goats were able to socialize and mix with the original herd once again, so it turns out that they didn't actually fully imprint on the sheep. Here you have some questions to do with imprinting. What I'd like you to do now is have a go at pausing the video and answering them on another sheet of paper, and then hit play whenever you're ready to see the answers. Here are the answers. If you did get all of these right, congratulations. I'd advise you to move on to the next video, which will be on Harlow's monkeys and more attachments. As always, thanks so much for watching, and if you have any more questions, write down a comment below or be sure to check out www.revisealevel.co.uk. And I'll see you next time.